Welcome to my webinar, Animal Communication Confidence. Thank you for being here, and I am really looking forward to the next 60 to 90 minutes that we are going to be spending together. So let me start off with a question. Imagine you and your pet or animal companion can talk to one another. Just hold that thought for a moment. Now connect that thought to how will you get to feel when that is the reality here and now. So this is the webinar, Animal Communication Confidence. I want you to master it like a professional without needing to become a professional. You'll learn how to listen without second guessing, recognize what's truly from your animal, and ask questions that open meaningful dialogue. So let's just check that we are on the same page, just for the next 60 or 90 minutes. You believe your pets and animals experience emotions and awareness, which means they can express preferences and choices. And animal communication is real. It's not something that is a mystery. And at some level, you are already talking and listening to your pets. Right, let me know which one describes what you're going through. With your own pets, you don't know where to start, what to ask, or even how to ask it. The emotional closeness can sometimes make things and situations feel loaded or too much. Or could it be that with your own pets, you tend to rush the conversation, wanting immediate answers to feel something is happening? And when you don't get proof, you give up. With your own pets, you crave a meaningful exchange. You don't just want question and answer, but you seek real connection. You feel there's something more, but you're not quite sure how to get there. With your own animals, you keep waiting for the perfect time, but life gets in the way and you don't seem to be able to find the right moment to communicate with one another. With your own pets, you find that you quickly default to practical worries and repeat the same questions. You don't know how to open the space for bigger wisdom. And with your own pets, you hesitate to follow a structure. It can feel too formal, like setting permission, intention, connection, because in many ways you assume you should be more intuitive by now. You get stuck waiting for it to flow like it does in other sessions. Now, this webinar is for you if you want to know what your pet is really feeling, and for you to feel confident you're receiving clear, meaningful insights you can act on or take comfort in. You want a structure or personal practice that supports a two-way exchange. You want consistency and you want depth. You're not aiming to become a professional. You just want to connect with your own animals in the way that feels real and trustworthy. Now, I want you to stay with me until the end because I'll be sharing 3 of my 6, actually I have more, signature communication tools from the Pet Communication Advanced Personal Practice Program. The tools have been designed to give you the personal practice and step-by-step method you need to feel truly confident in your communication with your own animals. And I promise you, I will deliver as much value as humanly possible in this free webinar. Nothing I teach today is based on theory, and everything you'll learn has already been tested and proven to work. And just for those of you who are new to me, who am I? I'm Joanne Yo. I'm a mum to 3 dogs and 1 cat. I have a dog in spirit, two dogs who are living, and my cat. I'm the author of the best-selling book Conversations with Companions, Mastering Communication with Your Pets, published in 2022. I'm the founder of Animal Communication Insights, where I offer consultations for my private clients. I'm also a teacher and mentor to pet parents and professional animal communicators. What led me to want to learn about animal communication was I needed to understand my dog, Donnie, and to resolve issues. So this is Donnie. He is the dog that is now in spirit, but he's the one that helped me explore communicating with my own animals. He was loving, comical, energetic. He was smart. He's playful. He's cheerful. And then on the flip side, he was also reactive with regards to barking and lunging at big dogs. He just would not come when I called him, and he would run off and disappear. And then he developed the paw chewing and constant ear infections. It threw me into this space of feeling embarrassed and fearful whenever I took him out. I became frustrated and annoyed with him most of the time because I felt that he just wasn't listening to me, wasn't doing what I wanted him to do. And with his health, I kept feeling so worried and helpless because I tried everything and nothing seemed to work. There is a podcast that I was a guest on, Sarah Roper's Dog Gone Wrong podcast, and I tell the full story of all the things that had gone wrong as far as I was concerned with Donnie, but he is the one that has led me to where I am and who I am today when it comes to animal communication. So in 2015, I attended an animal communication workshop. And it was around there that I started to hear it so often in the animal communication world. It's harder to communicate with your own pets. And without realizing it, that belief quietly took root in me. So it began with my own doubts, wondering why I could connect with other people's animals, but struggled to trust the answers I got from my own dog. With Donnie, I was always wanting to know what's wrong. Why was he chewing his paws? Why did he need to bark at other dogs? Could he not come back to me when I called him? I wanted him to give me those answers. So my questions tended to be, are you happy? Are you in pain? Why are you anxious? And what more can I do for you? I felt totally blocked when it came to communicating with my own pets. I experienced this nothingness when I would ask Donnie questions. Sometimes I might get a thought, but then I would then question it. Maybe that was me thinking it, but I didn't give up. There was a there was a time, it probably took me about 2 years, trying different ways, trying different things, seeing if I could learn from others, but in the end decided if anybody's going to find a solution, it will have to be me. And I found out that Donnie would communicate his emotions through other senses, such as taste. He loved food, and food brought out different emotions with him. So I discovered a way to ask him how he was feeling by asking him to describe tastes, sensations, rather than forcing him to answer my questions. How do you feel? So let's just take a moment here and try this out for ourselves. Maybe it's not a sense that we are that aware of or familiar with, unless you are a chef, maybe, and you could be a wine taster. So for the average person like myself, I know that when I drink something or eat something, I generally will say something like, oh, that's tasty, or nah, no, that's not tasty. I don't connect in with the different tastes. So let's choose sour for a moment. Think of, just use your imagination for a moment now. Bring upon the thought and the imagination of slicing a lemon and squeezing the juice and letting it drip onto your tongue. What's happening? Hopefully you're salivating. Okay. So now what I want you to do is connect in with how you feel, what emotions are brought up for you when you taste the juice of the lemon. So this was what was happening. Donnie was allowing me into his world of emotions through different tastes. So we can choose another one. Let's go for something bitter. Think of something bitter, or imagine that you are eating, or you put something in your mouth, or you're drinking a drink that is very bitter. What is your immediate reaction? And what's the emotion that's related to that reaction? So I will be talking later about the way that animals can communicate with us without using words. So this started to open up the possibilities of learning how Donnie, which means other animals would too, could communicate with us without using words. And that was the moment I realized my questions needed to be creative, to open up intuitive channels of communication and not ask only human phrased questions. So I got very excited because I felt like I got a snippet into the possibility. So I spent years after that creating what I call signature communication tools. I realized that it wasn't enough just to say, tell me how you're feeling or share with me whatever it is you want to share with me, because sometimes I will get an influx of information. And to be honest, most of the time I would not get much at all and even nothing. So I realized that we needed as a human something to help us to follow a framework or a method or a practice that gave us that sense of confidence that we knew that the minute we followed that, it would open up intuitive channels of communication. So I created the communication tools so that I could build a personal practice for communicating with my own pets, one that gave me structure I could return to again and again to support clear, consistent, and meaningful conversations. And these six signature communication tools, I've named them as the Curiosity Gateway, the Wheel of Life for you and your pet, Role Reversal, where emotions as messengers, a framework for holding meaningful conversations, the art of storytelling and symbolism, and your strengths map. So what happened after my breakthrough with Donnie was I stopped trying to get it right and started listening differently, and everything began to shift. Here's how that journey unfolded and how it shaped what I now teach. So going all the way back to 2016, and I struggled with the idea that my own pets was hardest to hear. It took me a couple of years. I didn't give up. I tried different ways and I broke through my blocks with Donnie. And then I refined my personal method. That allowed me to create my very first online course, the Pet Communication Quick Start course, because I really wanted other pet parents to not feel as if they can't communicate with their animals. And in the late 2021, I wanted to interview 12 communicators, 12 professional and non-professional communicators, but people who were very dedicated to their practice and had studied for many years. I was asking them why did they find it hard to communicate with their animals? And then I thought, hang on a minute, probably the best source of information would be their animals. So I got each of them to nominate an animal in their life that they found the most difficult to communicate with. And then I would communicate with that animal, with their animal, and actually ask their animal, why does your person find it harder to hear? It was originally just going to be like an experiment, but the information that came through from these animals was just mind-blowing. And part of the agreement with the communicators were that they were to follow what their animals had advised and guided them. And then we would wait to see how that would change, if at all, shifted the way that they could communicate with each other. And these stories were so magical, down to earth, powerful that I decided it really needed to be spread out. So I published Conversations with Companions, Mastering Communication with Your Pets, with these 12 stories. And from then on, since 2023 to date, I've focused on helping others to master communication with their own pets through my Deep Speak membership program. So let me just briefly tell you why I created these 6 signature communication tools. After working with hundreds of pet parents, I saw the same struggles again and again, wanting to connect with their own animals, but second guessing everything, feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure where to start, trying so hard to get it right, but never quite trusting the answer. So I created a way forward, a structure that they could return to, a practice that they didn't have to rely on guesswork, and a toolkit that built trust, no pressure. And I know that whenever I discover something, I create something, it's so important to test it out. I always test it out with my own pets in my own family, and then I will take it into the Deep Speak community. And then it's from that testing, I will also take it into my client's practice before taking it outside to the wider public. And through all these testing, I realized there were 3 missing pieces when communicating with our own pets. Because this personal practice helped me to close the gaps by changing the way I approach my pets and recognizing how to receive their answers. So it wasn't that I couldn't communicate with my animals. It wasn't that I wasn't intuitive. It wasn't that I wasn't knowledgeable enough. It was actually the way that I approached them with the questions that I had in my mind, but then also not recognizing how their answers could come back in so many creative, different ways. So let me share with you the 3 missing pieces that I discovered that when we want to master communication animals, we need to close that gap. So, missing piece 1, you approach communication already believing your pet should respond a certain way. Now, this is not something that's conscious, it's something that's unconscious. You expect the answer to match what makes sense to you. Perhaps I can give you an example. I once was asked to communicate with a dog that their person believed was feeling scared and fearful whenever he came to a point of their walk where they needed to get past in order to get to the woods, which he loved. He loved the woods. But every time he got to this point, he would just stop. And then she said, I know he's scared because his tail is between his legs and he won't move. So when I communicated with the dog, surprisingly, he didn't share with me the emotion of fear or being scared. In fact, he shared with me an emotion of confusion because when I tuned into him, I felt confused. I was almost in this state of what's going on? And then he shared with me that there was a particular scent that he couldn't recognize. And so he was more hesitant and more confused than scared. So I relayed that to my client. And what we did was I said to my client, don't view your dog as scared. And instead, just let him know that he doesn't have to identify that scent and that it's fine. Just move on, and that scent may fade on the way back. We don't know whether that would work, but she tried it and she messaged me the next day and said, for the first time in months, she was able to get him to move past that point, and then he could run in the woods and have a great time. So when you assume how your pet should feel or what they ought to say, you're not communicating, you're comparing. Because you're holding your pet up to a human expectation instead of getting curious about the actual experience. You might have found yourself thinking or saying things like, well, if I were them, I'd be upset. Or surely they should be asking for help. Why don't they tell me that they have hurt their paw? Or you might feel that they are ignoring me because I'm asking them to do something and they're not doing it. So what's the solution? We really need to swap assumptions for curiosity. Again, this is very unconscious. We're not conscious that we're making assumptions all the time. But when I bring it to your awareness, you'll soon start to see how quickly we jump to assumptions. And assumptions is due to the lack of presence or state of curiosity. So this is why I created the communication tool called Curiosity Gateway. What that means is that it shifts our mindset, whereby we let go of all judgment, because curiosity and judgment cannot coexist. And as a result, it would allow us to move into that place where we can become intuitive and creative with all the topics of conversations that we want to have with our animal. I have tested this out with the community, with the members in my community, where we actually create a jar whereby all the intuitive creative topics that come up in questions, we start to put it on pieces of paper and put it in this jar. So you never run out of prompts and suggestions of what to talk to your animals about. So in my book, Conversations with Companions, the story of Tasha, Annette's cat, chapter 5, is a great example. This is what Annette has said. She says, I always talk to Tasha, but I didn't really know how to listen back. I'd ask questions and assume she wanted answering because I wasn't good enough at communicating. But Joanne showed me that Tasha needed a different way to relate, one based on shared imagination and experience. It wasn't about getting it right. It was about getting curious. Missing piece number 2. You wait for the message to sound like words in your head. But then when you get it, you can't decipher if it's your own thoughts or your animal communicating. So you see, many of us, many pet parents, expect the communication to sound like a sentence, as if your animal is speaking the human language back to them. But animals don't use words the way that we do. They communicate in ways that are sensory, intuitive, and often non-verbal. It's our translation of what we receive in the sensory intuitive that becomes words. So images, emotions, body sensations, inner knowings, that's our animal's language. And Donnie was the classic case. Every time I had waited for him to answer me in words, that was when I was missing it totally, that I was receiving so much of his communication through taste and through emotions and sensations. So what's the solution? We really need to start listening the way animals speak. We may not realize it, but we have that expectation. We want them to make it easy for us. We want them to speak our language. But in a way, what's the point? It's all about us moving into their world, experiencing their world through their sensations, their experiences. So here are the senses that animals use: visuals, sounds, smells, taste, emotions, and sensations. So the more we become familiar with each of these sensations and images and sounds and smells and tastes, the more able we are able to receive the information. If you are only very visual and you haven't developed your ability to receive intuitive sounds, smells, and tastes, or emotions or sensations, then you can only receive a limited amount of information, because when the animal sends you, say, their answer through visuals and taste, you can only get visuals. So that's why I created the communication tool called the Meaningful Conversations Framework. Is really help us to have a shared two-way dialogue, because that's what we want at the end of the day. We don't just want it to be, I ask them a question, they give me one answer. I ask them another question, they give me another answer. We really want to have a conversation, a dialogue with them. So in my book, Conversations with Companions, chapter 6, the story of Brian and Becky is a great example. Becky says, I thought my dog, Brian, wasn't replying, but I realized I was only listening for words. Joanne helped me understand that Brian communicates in his own way, and it doesn't have to be verbal. Once I wrote him a letter like he asked, and the answers came back so clearly. I didn't need to hear him, I just needed to receive him. Is a really beautiful story of Becky and Brian. So let's move on to the last missing piece. You assume your pet's behavior means what it would if you were doing it. Instead of asking them to describe their experience, you jump into interpreting it from a human lens. So, for example, I had a client recently that was very worried about their dog being prone to biting and being reactive. And they immediately assumed that their dog was reactive and aggressive, even though they also said in the same breath what a gentle creature he is, particularly when he's around their children or people that he knew. Something didn't quite fit. So instead of experiencing the communication with their dog, to ask their dog what is happening with his body or his thoughts or his feelings, they just made the assumption that the biting behavior meant he was an aggressive dog. You see, animals don't operate from the same emotional patterns as humans because they respond to energy. They have a need for safety and clarity. They don't have the human social expectations. So when we pause and wonder, how might they be seeing this? Communication becomes deeper. So my suggested solution is we've got to ask better questions, not just for answers, but for understanding. And again, it's so subtle. Think about the way that you ask questions. Are you looking for an answer or are you seeking understanding? So this is when I created the communication tool, the Wheel of Life for you and your pet. This really helps us to have a holistic communication with our animals, not just asking them about general things, a general topic that's too broad for them to even contemplate what their answer could be. And because it's holistic, it means we can really tune in to what does it mean for them to feel happy, to have fulfillment, and ultimately quality of life. So this wheel of life has eight has eight categories: food and drink, exercise, health and well-being, environment, fun and recreation, family and friends, personal time, and spirituality. And I teach this in my pet communication advanced personal practice, whereby we take each section or we ask the animal right here, right now, which is your priority that you want to talk about. So already we're not lost for something to communicate about. Or we can say, let's do all eight, but we'll have an emotion that you are experiencing at the moment with that each aspect of your life. There's so many ways that I could show you to use the wheel of life. I do this with my own animals and I do this with my private clients as well. I have to say it's probably my favorite communication tool, although it's hard to choose. It depends on what it is that I want to, talk to my animal about. But already you can see that if you're wanting to know if your animal is happy, we ask them, are you happy? I mean, if I asked you that, most of the time we'd go, yeah, I guess so. Or it's just depending on what's going on with you in that moment. You might be full of joy in that moment and you would go, yeah, life's great. But if I asked you maybe a day later or a week later, it might be completely different. So to have a holistic, balanced view and communication with our animals, I've used this wheel of life and time again, we are never short of conversation. So this can be depicted in the story of Emily and Kiki, her cat, in chapter 9 of Conversations with Companions. Emily said, I used to think Kiki was just ignoring me when he stayed out too long. I worried, assumed the worst, and kept asking questions like, where are you? Or why haven't you come back? But Joanne helped me realize I was flooding him with my fears. So when I softened and simply asked how he was feeling, the connection returned. It wasn't that he wasn't communicating, it was that I wasn't listening in the right way. What I helped there was I used this wheel of life and we went into each section and just check because if your cat's not been home for a while, you would be concerned. Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Because you imagine that they'll be trapped. So we checked with Kiki, food and drink, what's going on? Then we checked about exercise. Is he active? Then we checked about his health. Is he feeling sick? We checked about the environment. Was he feeling safe? Was he trapped? We checked about fun and recreation. Was he having fun or was he scared? We checked about family and friends. Did he still value Emily as a family member? Was he having personal time moving, just staying away from the house? Was he actually feeling more energetically connected with the earthly realms or was he, what, so can you see how just instead of going, where are you? Are you lost? I need you home that really gave us a very grounding practice to communicate with our animals. So let me summarize because the missing elements means we're actually making some mistakes that I want you to avoid. So don't assume you know everything about your pets already. Be open to listening to them and share their feelings and thoughts about their perspective. Don't expect the communication to sound like a sentence. You could be missing so much. In fact, you are missing so much, as if your animal is speaking the human language. And don't just ask questions for answers, but instead ask for understanding. So if you were to take away one thing, I want you to know that when you stop making the mistakes, this will fix the problems you experience when communicating with your pet companions. How about working with me? Let me share with you 3 ways to work with me. I like to offer a structure or personal practice that also allows you the creativity and flexibility to bring out the best in you, which then guides you into a two-way exchange with your own animals. If you view yourself as a beginner, maybe you've only just discovered animal communication in the last month, in the last, you know, 3 or 4 months, then my book, Conversations Companions, I feel will really allow you to have an insight into the way that I work, but also it really captures all the all the stories around why we may feel as if we can't communicate with our own animals, but there's so many creative ways around that. So that you start with ditching the belief that your own animals are harder to communicate with. You can also sign up to my online pet communication quick start course. It's a self-paced online course that you take at your own pace. And it again I talk very much around your approach, your mindset, even before you begin to communicate with your animals. And you're at the stage where you no longer view yourself as a beginner. Let's just say that you're now at the advanced level. So this could be for some of you who've been dedicating yourself to animal communication, whether you've dipped in, dipped out, because we all have times in our lives where we might go in full blast and then suddenly life takes over and then you might dip your toe in, dip out, dip toe, but you've been keeping animal communication close to your heart for quite some time. And this is where I've created the Pet Communication Advanced Personal Practice. This is where I teach the 6 signature communication tools. This is the program I want to go into more detail with you in a moment. For those of you who are in my Deep Speak membership and program, I say that you're at the mastery level. I know the word mastery sounds, like you're an expert. If we break it down, mastery means application. To achieve mastery means you will be putting into practice what you're learning. So if you're at the beginner stage, you're still absorbing information, you're still absorbing knowledge. You might be starting to apply what you're learning, but it can feel a little tentative. At the advanced level, in terms of the personal practice, so this is not about you wanting to be a professional, but this is actually wanting to be as good as you can be with your own animals. This is where you're starting to almost move the knowledge into that application stage, but within a framework with the communication tools. So you don't feel lost or you don't feel overwhelmed. So that's almost like the middle ground that I want to achieve for you. And then when you're at that place where you feel more confident, you come into the community group with other like-minded pet parents and communicators. And oh my goodness, this is where the magic really happens, particularly with our own animals. So in this webinar, you've learned the 3 missing pieces. In the Pet Communication Advanced Personal Practice Program, we will go deeper. Each of the communication tool, all 6 of them, so you can actually live what we talked about. So let me go through each of the tool. You can discover the quiet connection that's already there. We've got to start with being curious. Now, you might think, okay, yeah, I'll just be curious. But we've really lost the ability to be curious. So the tool that I've created will really help us to shift our mindset, break out of our assumptions, break out of our judgments, and move into that curiosity state. Communication tool 2, the wheel of life for you and your pet, where we will apply for each of your animal those 8 categories of their lives and how to communicate with your animals. These tools help you drop into presence, recognize the bond, and open the intuitive channel. Communication tool number 3, this is something that I call the role reversal. So this is where I'll teach you, whereby this is how you can have a two-way dialogue. Communicating with our animals isn't just about us asking our animals questions. They have questions for us. So we really explore that. What questions would our animals ask us? It is the most insightful type of practice. In Communication Tool 4, I offer you a framework for holding meaningful conversations. We look at also, what do we mean by meaningful conversation? We yearn for it. We talk about wanting to deepen our conversation, but what do we really mean? What are we looking for? And once we know what we're looking for, what we're seeking, then we can go and get it. So these tools give you structure and self-trust in your unique way of communicating. Then communication tool 5, the art of storytelling and symbolism. Animals don't just tell us a story as in beginning, middle, and end. I mean, it can come in symbolism, it can come in metaphors, it can come in analogies. So until we also learn the art of storytelling, we're not going to be able to really connect with what it is that they're sharing with us. And that is a very powerful way to receive that communication. And communication tool 6 is about you, your strengths. Often we don't recognize our strengths because we compare ourselves with other people. And when you don't recognize your strengths, your animals aren't able to access those strengths of yours. So these tools help you grow with your animal, discovering wisdom together. And I've also included 3 bonuses because I want to fast track your success. For every participant in the program, each of you will have your own private member hotline. So we use a messaging service such as WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, depending on which account you have. It means that you can have access to me via messaging as a direct line to me for the duration of the program. Because often we get stuck in that moment and it might just take a little longer to try and send an email and then for me to catch up on my email. So WhatsApp and Messenger is a great way to just have a back and forth conversation between me and you so that if you think, oh, I don't really know what I want to say to my animal today, I can give you lots of suggestions. Or if you say, I tried this and I'm stuck at that, you can, get my suggestions on how to go around it. It's like in that moment, there's something instant about having that type of support. And you will also receive a 6-month curriculum journal. So I'm going to make sure that you don't feel lost or overwhelmed because sometimes when you sign up for a program, it feels like, oh my goodness, there's so much that you have to learn or spend time doing. So the journal can just give you a snapshot for each month, what it is that you can track your own progress, or you can have time for reflection. Some of you love journaling, so there'll be prompts in there for me to help you. And also a way for you to practice with your own animals and submit that conversation, that communication with your animal, so that I can offer you my thoughts and my feedback. And after the 6 months, you also have extended community support for up to 2 months because once the program is completed, we've done our live calls. Those 2 months are really very important because you might suddenly go, oh, what do I do now? So you have that 2 months where you're not having to learn stuff, but you can apply. So you're not suddenly thinking the program's over, I've lost Joanne, I don't have access to her anymore. But the member hotline, the community group will continue for a further 2 months. So the big question is, how can you apply this method and tap into the power of animal communication to understand your pets better? So I'm delighted and excited to create this 6 months program to really help you with the framework, with the communication tools. So it's no longer about, am I intuitive? Can I communicate with your animals? You know you can. It's just that you run out of ideas or you don't know what to do once you get stuck. This is the program to unstuck you at every single point. So it will include 6 months of live teaching from me. We have one a month. You will have the 3 bonuses of the hotline, of the journal, of you can also have the community support. This is where we really focus in on those 6 signature communication tools. You enroll now and you have access immediately. There will be some content and material in the curriculum that you can get started on, but it's self-paced. And so that when we start meeting in September, then you have the foundations as well. So this program is open until the 31st of July, which is the last day to sign out. And I have 10 spaces available. I don't want to create this big group. I want a small personalized space where I can give you that attention. This is why I'm able to offer you the hotline because with 10 of you, then I know I can give you that attention that you deserve. And I want you to use me. So just to recap, it's a 6 months program, but you have access straight away with the additional 2 months community support after the live teaching, and you'll have a personalized journal to reflect. We will go through each communication tool, one tool a month. You'll have a member hotline, ongoing support, and the program is priced at 497 UK GBP pounds. That works out, depending on the currency or exchange rate, around six something, 670 US dollars at this moment in time. So again, that changes, but there is a payment plan available if you would like to opt for that. So the question isn't if you're able to communicate with your pets, it's actually how quickly and confidently you do it and the transformation you and your pet will experience together as a result. You may be at that point where you just want to experience that success. You just want to just not keep getting stuck or not knowing how you're doing or have inconsistent results. So this is really the program that will give you the structure as well the flexibility and the creativity. And again, to recap, because there's so much in it, it includes the monthly live classes with the member hotline. You get lifetime access to the pet communication program. You'll have a curriculum journal. You have those bonuses to fast track your success, and you will be part of a community of like-minded pet parents. And just to stress, if those 10 spaces are taken up before the closing date of the 31st of July, then enrollment will be closed because I'm capping it at 10 participants. So to sign up, I can pop the link in the chat box, but I will be sending you emails to give you even more information about it. But for now, we'll copy this link into the chat box if you want to save that link to look at the program in more detail, and how to sign up will be all in that link. So I'm now eager to open up the space for questions that you have, and we'll check the chat box for some of your comments that you've been leaving during the teaching session. So let's move into the questions and answers. So thank you so much for being so enthusiastic and open to everything that I'm sharing with you. And I hope that you are as excited as I am about moving forward in your communication with your animals.